the Shurim this year in memory of Elisheva Bat Sima Frist. I was also informed that there were people who are participants of this year have asked that the shir is also in memory of my dear brother, Rabbi Yosef Adler, Zichrono Livracha, who passed away after prolonged illness. He passed away right before Rosh Hashanah. So our Avelut formally ended with Shiva on Rosh Hashanah and Shloshim on Yom Kippur. So it was a very abbreviated type of formal Shiva. Nevertheless, the kids in Teaneck, New Jersey, made a Shabbos. I was just there just for the weekend, and there was a very moving and meaningful weekend askara of different activities, which included not only a shul, Rinat Yisrael, but also the Yeshiva Tichonit, where he was the Rosh Yeshiva. They just built and expanded their building. The new wing of the building is in his memory. My brother had a schut of coming on Aliyah, even though it was a short tenure. For the last year and a half was in Modi'in, passed away in Modi'in, buried in Modi'in. He was shown the picture of the building, and he said, and this was typical of my brother, he says, who needs this? I don't need my name on a building. And my nephew said, we need it for fundraising. And my brother did understand something about fundraising, and he said, well, why can't they make the letters a little smaller? And that was also typical. And we heard things about my brother that we never knew in terms of his functioning as the Rav Kehillah and as Rosh Yeshiva. I mean, they're just absolutely amazing things. So it was closure for the community, and I think they really needed it. And it was done in a very, very mechubad way. There's going to be a unveiling of the Matzeva in about a month's time in Cemetery Modi'in. And there was talk about an askara, but the feeling is that they'll wait for the first yard site and they'll do something here in terms of formal askara. So Yehi Zecho Baruch, he was a very serious marbitz Torah in the North American United States scene, and Teaneck in particular, and both in terms of adult education and leading a community as a posek halacha, as a Rosh Yeshiva of high school students. He made an enormous impact on people's lives. He was also a very, very big Baal Chesed, and we heard this came out also in the various stories. I had mentioned just one little notch of his chesed in my own Hesped words. At the Levaya before Rosh Hashanah, that there was I thought for sure that on Chol HaMoed Pesach in 1993, my brother was going to be in Boston for the Levaya of our great Rabbi, the Rav Soloveitchik. And it turns out he wasn't there. What happened was there was a death in somebody's family in Teaneck, where, in America, rabbis do the levayas. You have to have a rabbi. It doesn't work like that here. But whatever the circumstances was, the family was without a rabbi, and he was not part of my brother's kehillah. And my brother was asked if he can step in and step up and just do this levaya, knowing fully well he was going to miss the levaya of the Rav. And he told me it was a no-brainer, because if he would have asked the Rav what to do, the Rav would have said, of course, this is a chesed shel emet, There'll be other people at the Levaya and of the Rav in Boston. So you just do what you have to do as a chesed. And this was just very typical, unassuming, not waiting for any applause or any note of appreciation or whatever. This is what he did. He did it silently. He was a person who was principled, who took stands that sometimes were even unpopular, but if he thought it was correct, he just did it. And this also had something to do with what the Rav taught us. And I heard this line from Rabbi Lam, Zichrono Livracha, in the name of the Rav, V'Yakov halach ledarko. Yaakov Avinu, at the end of Parshat Vayetze, he went on his way. It seems to be a superfluous pasuk, and the Rav said, it means that if he has a derech, if he has a way, he didn't look right and he didn't look left over both shoulders to see how they're going to react and how they're going to react. You go forward. You go forward with your position. I remember the construction of the Eruv in Teaneck. It was on some level controversial. Most of the rabbis went along with it. There were always misnagdim, some who thought it wasn't a good idea. And my brother took a bold stand at that time, and he said that on the first Shabbat that the Eruv was up, I remember him telling me this, that at 2 PM, he and two other rabbis walked on this main street in Teaneck with their talis in their hand, just to show that the Erev is up and functioning. So he was a no-nonsense type of person. He didn't dress particularly rabbinic, and at this TABC, which is Torah Academy of Bergen County, he dressed almost like the kids dressed. Very, very very informally dressed, and he didn't care. And a lot was made about the fact that he was a devout Yankee fan, and almost every person who spoke, took note of it. But that was who he was. But he was a big Talmid Chacham, and he was also the Rav Shamus in the early 70s, when the Rav needed some assistance in his apartment, so he took over from his chavruta, Mark Karasik, who moved on and graduated and so on. And because of that, that's how I came into the picture, and that's the reason I dedicated my book on the Rav's conversations to my brother, because he was the trailblazer, and I asked my wife permission also, but my wife got the dedication in the second book on the Rambam. But the first book, I very much wanted that my brother should be the centerpiece, because as I remember clearly, he called me up in that one September morning and said, he said, Arla, you want to drive the Rav this year? And I remember saying yes, hanging up and fainting. I don't know if I completely fainted, but I was like jolted. I didn't realize what I just said and what I'm going to do, but that was a game changer in my life, no doubt. And the rest is, as I say, the rest is history. Okay, last week we began with Anim Zemirot, and we'll try to do justice and try to finish this today, because next Wednesday I'm not going to be here. We're invited to London for next week to speak on Shabbat, and we're just taking a few days to get used to the anti-Semitic atmosphere of downtown London. So we'll try to finish this. So we mentioned already that the poem Anim Zemirot, the Vilna Gaon said only on Yom Kippur. By the way, in Rinat Yisrael, only on Yom Kippur. They did not sing Anim Zemirot on Shabbat. In most shuls, we sing it on Shabbat. Many, many, many years ago, it was actually said every day, but that was dropped. That was clearly dropped. We mentioned that it was miyuchas, perhaps attributed to Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid. Well, maybe, and there is a manuscript that indicates that he knew about the poem, so it's like it was around. People think, and this was mentioned by Rabbi Yaakov Emden, that maybe it was his father, Rabbi Shmuel HaChassid, father of Rabbi Yehuda HaChassid, and it might be indicated by the fourth of the last line of the poem, Tikar Shirat Rash Be'enecha, where Shirat Rash, Reshin, would be Rabbeinu Shmuel. So it could be, it's a conjecture. And I also pointed out that Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook thought that it was Shlomo ibn Gabirol. That's also going to work with the Shin, the Reshin. So, and he's a Sephardi poet from Cordoba and Toledo in the 11th century. We don't know. We just don't know absolutely, and that's, fine. We saw that the first 4 or 5 lines, until you get to the letter Aleph of Asapra Kivotcha, was all introductory material, and the idea is that he was trying to explain that we're going to sing a song and weave a song, E'erog, like Shirim E'erog, Ki Elecha Nafshi Ta'arog, and he's going to use parts of psukim from Tanakh to cut and paste them out of the book of Tanakh and put it together in the fashion of Anim Zemirot. Asapra kvotcha v'lo re'iticha, adamcha achancha v'lo yidaticha. I will speak of the glory of God, of you. He's talking to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, directly looking at HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as if to say, except that I can't see you, because you, God, are invisible. Achancha, I will say references, like a nickname. Kinui means it's a nickname. It's not the real name. Achancha v'lo yidaticha. I'll never really get to know you. So if you look on the source page down below, source number 4. So you're going to have to have your finger on the numbers and perhaps flip the pages each time as we go. But source number 4 is from Parshat Kitisa, where Moshe Rabbeinu says, he wants to know about a Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hareini Nat Kvodecha. He wants to, please, a Kadosh Baruch Hu should show me what you're all about, your essence. And in source 4, Kadosh Baruch Hu responds, Vayomer lo tuchal lirot et panai. No, you cannot see my face. Ki lo yirani ha'adam v'chai. Human beings cannot, face to face with Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's not going to happen. Okay? So he says, Achancha v'lo yedaticha. So what do we know about Kadosh Baruch Hu? Biyad neviecha, the ot bet. Biyad neviecha, in the hands of our prophets, besod avadecha, the secret of your servants who are the prophets, dimita hadar kvododecha. The word dimita is from the word dimyon. Again, we're going to reference. It's going to be by analogy only. By analogy only, we're going to know something about your glory. Gidulatcha ugvuratecha kinu litokef peulatecha. Your greatness and your your might. We're going to be able to, again, the word kinui. He's using the word kinui over and over again in different forms, but it means lechanot somebody. It means to give a nickname to somebody. It's a hamachune. It means he's known by. Sometimes in a shtar, in a document, for sure in a get, but sometimes even in a ketubah, they write the person's name, but nobody has a clue that that's who he is. Why? Because the parents gave him a name in the 1930s and wanted to Americanize him, so his name is George. But he's named after his grandfather, Shmelke Shmuel Shmelke. So what are you going to write in the ketubah? Nobody knew that he's Shmuel Shmelke. In all likelihood, the guy himself didn't know his name is Shmuel Shmelke. So he's George. So sometimes in the ketubah they'll actually write Shmuel Shmelke Hamechune, known as George. They'll write it in such a way. So the word kinui is something that substitutes for the real thing. Gedulatcha gvuratecha kinu litokef pulatecha. If we are going to recognize your actions are going to speak about who you are, because that's visible. That's visible. When Kadosh Baruch Hu takes us out of Mitzrayim, that's visible. He took us out of Mitzrayim. And that's why, how does Moshe Rabbeinu, according to Chazal already, Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us the first two of the Aseret HaDibrot. How does Kadosh Baruch Hu identify himself? He doesn't say, I am God who created the world. He says, I'm your Redeemer. Well, that they can relate to. They're standing at Har Sinai. 7 weeks after Yetziat Mitzrayim, they have yet forgotten Yetziat Mitzrayim. So in the Sefer Kuzari of Rabbi Yehuda HaLevi, he talks about the Elohei Aristo, the God of Aristotle, and Elohei Avraham, the God of Avraham. He says the God of Aristotle is a philosophical concept of, and it's a type of deity, clearly a powerful deity, but with no connect to what's going on this world. According to Aristotle, so a God, created the world. The whole question, did Aristotle actually believe in a creation? But that's not our discussion here. But clearly Aristotle never believed that deity has any interest whatsoever in what's going on down here on earth. Now it's just on automatic pilot. We're just moving. Whereas Elohei Avraham means that a Kadosh Baruch Hu intervenes in history, and that's the whole fundamental idea of the covenant of the Brit Ben Abtarim in Parshat Lech Lecha this week. That's where it comes out. That Kadosh Baruch Hu is interested in what's going to be the welfare of Am Yisrael and so on. So tokef pu'ulatecha, what gives some type of force to his gedula and gvura, his greatness, is actually going to be measured by his actions, because the actions, the historic result, is something that you can see, you can measure. Dimu otcha velo kefi yeshcha. Again, dimui. So he's using kinui and dimui over and over again. In case you didn't get the point the first line, maybe you'll get it the fourth time. I always remind myself of a lane in Kriyat HaTorah on Chol Hamoed Sukkot. It's the same 3 psukim that we reread 4 times. So if the Baal Korah came to shul and he didn't prepare, by Shlishi Revi, he's got it. You read the same thing. So dimu and dimayon, which also means, type of imagination. V'lo kefi yeshcha. Yesh means his essence. So the dimui is not his essence. It's just to help us understand what Chazal would say, Dibra Torah kilashon bnei Adam. The Torah speaks in the jargon of human language so that we can relate to it. Vayashvucha lefi hamasecha. Again, according to his deeds, we're going to be able to evaluate something about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Himshilucha berov chezionot. Right, I'm still continuing. I don't have another. So, himshilucha berov chezionot. The word himshilucha, from the root is mashal, analogy. Again, it's a kinui, a dimion, it's a mashal. He's just flipping the words. Berov chezionot, with all the visions, the prophetic visions. Hincha echad bechol dimyonot. Even though we're getting the visions in different flavors, which means, if you open Tanakh, Chazal say, Ein shnei nevi'im mitnab'im b'signon echad. Two prophets don't prophesy in the same style. So, with regard to the 5 books of Torah, Chamisha Chumshei Torah, it is unacceptable to speak about the style of Moshe Rabbeinu. There's nothing about Moshe Rabbeinu's style there. Maybe Sefer Devarim, we can talk a little bit about Moshe Rabbeinu, who had input in Sefer Devarim. But the first 4 books, it's just dictation. Kadosh Baruch Hu said, start writing. Bereshit, Bereshit, Bara, Bara, Elokim, Elokim. Of course, then he translated into Yiddish. But that's what we were told in first grade. In Chavetz Chaim Yeshiva. Bereshit and Onfang, Bara, Elokim, Ot Hashem, Bashafen. That's right. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't do it in Yiddish? No? Okay. So we have, but the Nevi'im, Yeshayahu spoke his language, and Yechezkel spoke his language, and Micha spoke his language. They all had different languages, and many of them are saying similar, almost identical things, but because they're coming in different mishalim, in different analogies, doesn't mean they're different deities. It's all one. And I'll read it again. Himshilucha berov chezionot. The mashal, the analogies come in various chizayon. Chizayon is vision. Chazon Yechezkel and so on. Chazon Yeshayahu. Hincha echad. You are nevertheless one from all of the dimyonot. All of these, the type of allusions that are being given to God. The bottom line is you're one. And in spite of the fact that you're one, you sometimes show up in different form, costume, color, and so on, based on the message. So on the one hand, vayechazu b'cha zikna, you might show up as an elder statesman, a zaken, you might show up like that, or bacharut. Bacharut means a youngster, from the word bachur. You might show up as an old individual or as a young individual. Usa'ar roshcha b'seiva. You might have a vision where God's hair is all white, like an elderly person, or shacharut, with a nice, teenager's hairdo of so on. It might come out this way or that way. Zikna b'yom din, perhaps when we refer to Kadosh Baruch Hu on the day of judgment, it could even be the end of one's life, or it can be Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. How do we refer to Kadosh Baruch Hu? Yom Adin, right? Remember the poem? It's a very moving poem. Lekel orech din, levochen levavot biyom din, legolea mokot badin, ledover mesharim biyom din, lehoge deot badin, and I can hear my brother doing this, Shlich Tzibur, because that's how I picked it up too, and we picked it up from a great uncle. Levochen levoavois biyom din, oy legolea mokot badin. Oy vavoy, if somebody sings a kalbachnig into this. There's no kalbachnig into this. This has to be said with the kvetch that from the altahain, from the old home. That's how you say lekel orach din. But and the same thing of Yareti Biftzoti Siach Lahashchil. There's a poem where every phrase ends with the word chil, and the word chil means frightening. Chil urada. And the Chazan says it in his opening piyut for Shachris on Rosh Hashanah. It's parallel to the Hineni Anim Mimas that the Chazan does by Musaf. And he's asking permission for Kadosh Baruch Hu to get started. And he's frightened because it's Chil Urada. And the Paitan of the Nutana Tokev says it too. V'chil Urada Yochezun. Right? V'shofar Gadol Yitaka. The kol demama daka yishama. Then it says malachim yechafezun uchil urada yochezun. Everybody's panic stricken. Just being hinei yom adin. Hinei yom adin. So, what kind of vision of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, if you're going to paint a picture, as if to say, of a Kadosh Baruch Hu on Rosh Hashanah? It's going to be zikna b'yom din. He's a zaken. He's going to be an elder judge and so on. Ubacharut, when is going to show up young? The Yom Krav, in the day of battle. Ke'ish milchamot, yadav rav lo. Look at the source page now. It's source number 5. So this is from the Mechilta, the Medrash Halacha on Parshat Bishalach, from Shirat Hayam. Hashem ish milchama. Lama ne'emar, lefi shenigla al hayam, כי גיבור עושה מלחמה, שנאמר, השם איש המלחמה, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself on the Yam Suf like a warrior, a strong warrior, as it says, Hashem ish mלחמה, nigla b'Sinai kizakein malei rachamim. At Har Sinai, he had a compassionate take, a completely different image at Har Sinai. And that's just 6 weeks later. But what does it make a difference? The idea that the Midrash is saying is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself to the people with different mannerisms, so that we should appreciate different sides of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, how he's doing it for us. Yeah, Faksha.
Saying that on the one hand, Zakein is Din, and over here, in the Chilpa, Zakein is Rachamim.
Okay, Yafeh, which means that Zakein comes in 2 flavors also. So Chazal says, Zakein Misha Kanech Chochmah. What's the classic? Shivim Zkenim. Shivim Zkenim, the 70 members of the Beit Din HaGadol, has nothing to do with age. Nothing to do with age. If I mentioned before, Hineni Anim Mimas, so the Chazan, may perhaps aware of his shortcomings, echoes the Gemara in Masechet Ta'anit, Daf Tet Zayin, that tells us the qualifications of a Shliach Tzibur for a Yom Tzom, let's say for drought, or Yomim Noraim, for our purposes. And the Chazan says, V'kabel tfilati, you should accept my tefillah, ke zakein v'ragil, pirko no'eh, kano megudal, right? Kolo na'im, u'me'urav b'da'at im habriot. Take it out, lift it out. It's a section of Shulchan Aruch. What are the qualifications? So Zakein means a Talmud Chacham. Doesn't mean old.
It means a sage.
A sage.
Not an age.
Sage, not an age. Yafeh. Yeah, and you could be a sage at 35. You could be a sage at 35, right? I always remind myself that when I would interview 6th graders to come into Yeshiva Chashmonoim, going into 7th grade, I would ask him, can you tell me something about the Sha'agat Aryeh? Who? Me? Mu? Shagat Arte. Why do I do that? Because the Rav once told my brother that when the Rav, was 10 years old in the town Chaslovich, he prepared bar mitzvah speeches for his buddy friends who were then 13 on the basis of the Sha'agat Aryeh, one of the most difficult of the Sfarim of the period of the Achronim, that he already completed at age 10. So I wanted to see, is there another Rabbi Yosef Dov Soloveitchik coming up the ranks? Yeah. What do you say about the Shagat Aryeh? Oh, you don't know? Okay, let's move on to the next question. That's okay. Nobody knows. I'm embarrassed to even tell you what my son Eitan answered at one of the questions. He said one of the questions he had on his entrance exam to the yeshiva was, "What? Can you tell me something about a shor hamuad? If you studied Baba Kama, you should know this." And it was on a paper, and it didn't have nekudot. So he thought it was shor hamoed. It was an animal for Yom Tov, for part of the korbanot of Yom Tov. So he was very creative. He thought out of the box, but it wasn't the right answer. They took him anyway. He had protection. He got into the yeshiva. Yeah. So So you have here a Kadosh Baruch Hu on the one hand as a Zakein, Shivim Zkenim. They are the elders of the Sanhedrin. It's nothing to do with age. Zakein v'ragil. Ragil means he's proficient in his tefillah. In the days of old, they didn't have machzairim. You had to know the tefillah by heart. And Pirko Na'eh means when you were young, you had an unblemished record. It's not that you were a Vildechaya when you were 18 years old, and now you're 42, you settled down. No. I want about Tefillah, who when he was 13, he was a tzaddik. Now he's 40 years old. Okay, beseder. But I don't want somebody who had a bad mark, a black mark on his record when he was young. Pirko Na'eh. Skano megudal means he had a beard. Doesn't mean you have to have a beard, by the way. It means it shouldn't be a boychik, a bchorchik. It shouldn't be a 13-year-old. You should be a little bit mature. But it doesn't mean that you have to have a beard. And murabet kolonaim, that means you're pleasant, because a Batfila who does not have a pleasant voice, forget it. And murabedat imabriot, he's accepted by the community. That is extremely important. Accepted by the community. So that's Zakein. So here in source number 5, you have Kadosh Baruch Hu as being both a warrior and also a Zakein. Fine. And this is the only time, by the way, that a Kadosh Baruch Hu will fight our wars. The only time he's going to fight our wars. Hashem Nishmachama, Hashem Shemo, and Vatem, where it says Vatem Tacharish, Hashem Yilachem, Vatem Tacharishun. God's going to fight this battle. You be quiet. You be quiet. This is the only time, because right after in Parshat B'Shalach, and there's a problem with Amalek, Kadosh Baruch Hu's not there for them. Oh yeah, he'll be there, standing on the side. Tell Yeshua to put together an army, and they're going to have to fight. And Kasher Yarim Yadoshel Moshe v'Gavar Amalek. Gavar Amalek means the Amalekim were victorious, means they were wounded and dead on the battlefield. That's what it means, war. That's what it means. And OUisrael is given a Torah that includes the laws of Milchama. We're going to have to tell the million coming here on Thursday that if they don't believe this, they're apikorsim, they're kaifrim, that the laws of Milchama are part of the Torah. And part of the Torah says that on occasion, we have to step out of the Beit Midrash and fight. We have to do that. Rabbi Akiva knew that somehow. He knew that with Bar Kochba. Of course he knew that. Right? But since Rabbi Akiva, by the way, Jews didn't have this opportunity until the state was established. So that's why, we forgot. 1,700 years, you forgot. Forgot halacha. So some people have to be reminded. Okay, Seder. Too much politics for this year already. And in source number 6, a pasuk in Daniel. So how's your Aramaic? So it's not just Babylonian Aramaic, it's Eretz Yisrael Aramaic. But just look where I underlined, where I made it bold. Usa'ar Rashi ka'amar nikei. And his hair was like white as bleached, as wool. As clean. Nakei means clean, bleached. Then it means there's a description of a Kadosh Baruch Hu with white hair. So again, that's white hair. But then if you look in Shir Hashirim, in source number 7, Rosho Ketem Paz, his head is golden crown, Kivutzotav Taltalim Shchorot Keorev. Black curls. So this is a imagine gorgeous side locks. I guess it was payas. This description of Shlomo Melech of blacks, I can have black and white. So that's what the author of the Anim Zemirot is telling us. Sometimes the Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to show up with seva, sa'aroshcha b'seva, like old hair, and shacharut, young men's hair. Zikna biyom din ubacharut b'yom krav kish milchomot yadav lo rav. So yadav lo rav comes from source number 8 from about Yehuda. Zot Yehuda v'omar. It's in the Zot HaBracha. We just read it on Simchat Torah. Shemar Hashem kol Yehuda ve'lamot tevienu. Yadav rav lo. He's got his hands in so many different things. And this was the point, by the way. The Abarbanel explains this, why Yehuda was selected as being the Melech. Because he was versatile. All the other Shvatim, Moshe Rabbeinu said wonderful things about them, and in Parshat Vayechi, Yaakov said wonderful things about them, except each one had something, but didn't have everything. The only Shevet that has fingers in everything was Yehuda. In other words, he was a little bit this and a little bit that and a little bit this and a little bit that, and he was knowledgeable in all areas of running a state. And that's why he was chosen. Yadav Rav Lo, yeah. No, that's the pasuk before. The pasuk was Shir Hashirim, Rosho Ketem Paz, Kivutzotav Taltalim Shkorot. Here, we just bring this pasuk to show that in Shir Hashirim, Kadosh Baruch Hu is described with black hair. And in Daniel, in source number 6, he's described with white hair. So let's get this right. Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't age. Is the vision with black or with white? And the author of the Anim Zemirot says both. It depends what the context is. So when he's on the battlefield, he's dark hair, he's strong, he's young. And when he's sitting in justice, he's this old sage. So there you're going to picture him with more white hair. Okay, so now we're up to letter Chet. Chavash kova Yeshua berosho, Hoshia lo yemino uzroa kacho. Chavash kova, he's wearing a hat of hell. In his he's got the helmet on that shows. I'll give an example. The fireman has his hat, the policeman has his hat, and and then the baseball player has his hat. The hat sometimes identifies you, what you're going to do, who you are. So he's wearing the hat of Yeshua, of helping. If you need help, he's going to come with the hat of Yeshua on. Right? Sometimes a person has different positions in life, and he says, I'm wearing this hat right now, right? Like I tell people, I have my off-duty hat. Like, don't bother me now. Like, what I'm going to wear in London? My wife said, not a kippah. She said, not a kippah. I know. Right. A baseball hat. Right. I love these pictures sometimes. I see the Hasidic people on tours, and they wear a Yankee hat, and they don't look Jewish, I love it. They don't look Jewish. Okay. Chavash kova Yeshua berosho, Hoshia lo yemino uzroa kacho. Hoshia lo yemino, his right hand. Kadosh Baruch Hu is always depicted as being strong on the right side. Right? You have this, Yemincha Hashem ne'edari bakoach, Yemincha Hashem tiratz oyev. Now Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have any side. So why is it described as Yemin and Yemin? And we have it in Hallel. Yemin Hashem osachayil, Yemin Hashem romema, Yemin Hashem osachayil. It's the side of the right side. Hashem shomrecha, Hashem tzilcha al yad yeminecha. And that's why we put the mezuzah on the right side of the entering. Because that's where Kadosh Baruch Hu, as if to say his position. Well, you mean Kadosh Baruch Hu is not on the left side? He's on the right side, he's on the left side. We need this for ourselves, to consider that a Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to be expressing the power on the right side. So where does this come from? Yemin Hashem Nadari B'Koach Shirat Hayam. So I remember I may have echoed this at some other shir, so forgive me if I'm repeating this, but at Yeshiva University, so we had to take, it was liberal arts education. So eventually you get to the third year of college, you start majoring in something. But first 2 years, Pachot Yater, you're taking all different types of courses, so that you should be Yadav Ravlo. You should have your fingers in everything, especially if you're going to be a Rav and a teacher. You shouldn't be an ignoramus when it comes to history and literature and science and math and so on. You know a little bit. You shouldn't have that Yabal Batim know a lot because he's a PhD, in Princeton, whatever, and you know nothing. What do you mean nothing? How can you know nothing about it? So you have to have something. So it was a tasting of something. So we had a course of art, of appreciation of classical art. So the professor was Professor Chernowitz. He had a father who was well known in the days of the Maskilim with the Yaluk, but he happened to have been a Shem Torah Mitzvahs. He was a big Talmid Chacham, Rav Chaim Chernowitz, and he was known as the Rav Tzair. He had a nickname, the Rav Tzair. But anyway, I'm talking about his son now, who is a professor of art history at Yeshiva University. And among other things, he showed us that in illuminated manuscripts of Haggadah Shel Pesach, you can see that the parois always had right hands. Even the left hand was drawn as a right hand. So your right hand is this way, your left hand is this way. No, they had this way, and they had the right hand. The left hand looked like a right hand. Or the left foot had the ankle coming out like a right foot. Why? Because in the Egyptian culture, right was strong, meant stronger than left. And the paroi, even his left was a right. That's what they were trying to say. He was so powerful that even his left was a right. So Am Yisrael coming out of Mitzrayim, they knew this. So a description of a Kadosh Baruch Hu couldn't be any less than what they saw of the Paroi in Mitzrayim. So Yemincha Hashem Nadari B'Koach, Yemincha Hashem Tiratz Oyev. The application to Shirat Hayam is mine, but the idea of the Yemin, of being the strong, coming out of Mitzrayim, I heard from Professor Chernowitz. Okay, so here you have Yemin. So he's saying Chavash Kova Yeshua Brosho, Hoshea Lo Yemino. Like on the right side, Uzroa Kacho. So, we have this, Yad Chazakah, Zroa Netuya. What's the difference between Yad Chazakah and Zroa Netuya? God doesn't have a hand, doesn't have an arm, but it's a sense of power. So Rambam explains us that, the power is Yad Chazakah. Zroa is the ability for Kadosh Baruch Hu to take us in his arms. It was the compassion of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. So the Yad Chazakah was meted out against the Egyptians. The Zeroy Netuyah was to take us all in. His arm was so stretched that he was able to take 600,000 men, and then there was the women. Maybe he put the women in the Esrat Nashim, I don't know. But he had the Am Yisrael was the Zeroy Netuyah. In other words, we felt the closeness. Kadosh Baruch Hu put his arm around us. How long was his arm? Every person fit into HaKadosh Baruch Hu's arm. It was Zroa Netuyah. So here it's Zroa Kacho. You look at source number 9 from Yeshayahu, Vayilbash Tzedakah Kashurion, V'chova Yeshua Berosho. So here you see where he got the phrase from, Chavash Kova Yeshua. Birosho, lifted out of this pasuk. So it's a cut and paste, right? And source number 10, it's from Tilim, Perek, Tzadichet. We say this every Friday night in Kabbalat Shabbat. Mizmor, Shiro Hashem, Shir Chadash, Ki Niflot Asa, Hoshea Lo Yemino, Uzroa Kadesho, right? Hoshea Lo Yemino, Uzroa Kadesho. Here, he doesn't shift around, he just quotes it, right? He quotes it, Hoshea Lo Yemino, Uzroa Kadesho. It was perfect for him. It fit the rhyme, it fit everything. And now the next line, Talalei Orot, Rosho Nimla. Ukvutzotav risise laila. That is some image here. If you look at the source number 11 from Shir Hashirim, Ani yishena v'libi er kol dodi dafek. I don't want to stop on this phrase because the Rav built a whole drasha in 1956 on this. Pitri li achuti rayati yonati chamati sheroshi nimlatal kvutzotai risise laila. There's something about dew that's and the phrases come out of various psukim in Tanakh, as we see from source number 12, Kital Orot Talecha. There's something that refers to a Kadosh Baruch Hu's light that's shining, projecting from his head. And I say it again, Nimlak Uktzutzav. I'm reading Tet. Tet Halalei Orot Osho Nimlak Uktzutzav Risisei Laila, which comes out of that pasuk from Shir Hashirim of source number 11. Risisei Laila, which means that even at the edge of the night, or even Risisei might even be the depths of the night, nevertheless, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everything is light. Yitba'er bi ki chafetz bi. God should be proud of us. Imagine, we want our parents to be proud of us. We're telling you, the author is saying, Kadosh Baruch Hu should be proud of us. As it says in Yeshayahu in source number 13, Vayomer li avdi ata Yisrael. You, Am Yisrael, are my servant. Asher bicha et pa'er. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I will be proud. I will glorify my servant. Who's my servant? Am Yisrael. So now, after he said a few things about Kadosh Baruch Hu, he's going to say a few things about Am Yisrael. Because Am Yisrael and Kadosh Baruch Hu somehow go together. They go together. Yitba'er bi ki chafetz bi. You want me. V'hu yeh li la'ateret tzvi. You are going to be for me the crown. The crown, as in source 14. Bayomahu yeh Hashem tzvaot la'ateret tzvi. Amongst the other nations, b'sha'ar amo. So against all the other nations, you are the choice, the chosen, the choices. Ketem tar paz demut rosho. We saw this phrase already in Shir Hashirim, earlier in Shir Hashirim Parakeh. Rosho ketem paz, Kvutzotav taltalim shchorot gorev. Rosho ketem paz means your ketem is pure gold. It's high-level gold. Your crown is pure gold. V'chak al metzach kvod shem kodsho. And engraved on your forehead is the name, your holy name. Who's walking around with a Kadosh Baruch Hu's name on his forehead, if not Aaron HaKohen, the Kohen Gadol, on the tzitz, which was on his forehead, and what did it say on it? Kodesh Lashem. So there's a machloket. Did it say Kodesh Lashem in one line, or did it say Kodesh and a Lamed on one line, and slightly above it was Shem Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. So it was a little bit imbalanced. Kodesh Le Hashem was above. Or, as they did it in Mechon HaMikdash, they wrote Kodesh on one line, and then they drew the Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, twice as large. So it took up both the line of the Kodesh with the Lamed and above. I think they created a third view as a compromise, suggesting to the Sanhedrin in Mirz Hashem, hey, why don't we do it this way? And then we don't have to decide on the machloket between Kodesh Lashem in one line or Kodesh with a Lamed, and then Yud Kei Vav Kei Hashem's name on the above line further down the tzitz. So the Gemara says in Masechet Sukkah Davav, Amar Rabbi Yossi, Ani hayiti beromi, I was in Rome, and I saw the tzitz. What do you mean you saw the tzitz? So do you remember the Arch of Titus, of the bringing of the Klei HaMikdash to Rome? Why shouldn't the tzitz be in Rome? So when Rav Lau Sr. was chief rabbi, and he visited Pope John Paul II, who was, in Yiddish we say, an anständiger. He was okay. He really, I don't want to get involved, but I had high regard for Pope John Paul II when he came here to Yerushalayim. It was unreal. He went to the Kotel, took off his cross. I mean, that was unparalleled. Took off his cross, went to Kadosh Baruch Hu to daven that Kadosh Baruch Hu should forgive the church for what their involvement in the Shoah. I mean, that was something. He could have almost retired right then and there, because he took his whole theology of 1,800 years and threw it right in the can, mamish. And he apologized. So anyway, Pope John Paul II, so the Rav Lau asked him if maybe he can dig up the Klei HaMikdash, something. Pope says, look, Pope John the 23rd in 1963 said you can check out the library. Whatever you see there, photograph, whatever you want, it's there. All kinds of Sifrei Kodesh are there that were pillaged in the days of the pogrom. We don't have Klei HaMikdash here. So, okay. Did Rav Lau believe him or not? I don't know. But you can ask him. He's still in Tel Aviv. You can ask him. But the Gemara tells us that one of the Tanaim, Rabbi Yossi, testifies, I saw it. I saw it in Rome. Okay, could be, it's buried somewhere. What? Oh, so the Shita was, it was one line. That's the whole point. He says, I saw it in Rome, and it was one line. Okay, Beseda. So that almost closes the door on the issue. So this is the Chag al Metzach. And then it says, L'chein Chavod tzvi tivara, umato lo itra atara. So what does this mean? So if you look at a source number, right, 16. Let's look at this medrash. A medrash in Parshat B'Shalach. Umeachar shekol haknesiot gomrot kol hatfilot. Knesiot here means bate knesiot, not churches. It means shuls. After all the shuls finish their davening, well, the malach hamumuneh, who's in charge of the tefillot, is going to accumulate put in his basket, all of Am Yisrael's tefillah. Now, my gosh, in Katamon, he's going to sit there from 6 in the morning until 11:30, until all the Katamon minyanim are going to finish davening. So the Medrash says the malach who's in charge of tefillot, who brings tefillot to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, will collect all of the tefillot shitpalu b'chol haknesiot and all the batei knesset, kulan, v'oseh otan atarot, and God is going to make them into a crown. V'notnim berosho shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to be adorned with this crown of all of the tefillot of Am Yisrael. And just jump a few lines. Shakadosh Baruch Hu mitater betfilatan shel Yisrael. Kadosh Baruch Hu is adorned by the tefillot of Am Yisrael. This is what the author had in mind. L'chein ulchavot tzvi tifara umato lo, his nation, itra atara. His crown is going to be adorned by the tefillot of the nation. Machlefot rosho kivimei bechurotav. Again, repeating the theme, and this perhaps we have to give some thought why he comes back to this, that his head, again, is radiating like the young. Ukvutzotav taltalim shcharot, he mentions this again, that he has the black hair, he's young, and so on. Nevei tzedek tzvi tivarto ya'aleh na al rosh simchato. What is Nevei tzedek? Nevei tzedek is Beit HaMikdash. It's one of the 70 names of Yerushalayim. There's a medrash that says Yerushalayim comes in 70 flavors, and 22 of them, by the way, are found in the Hoshana of the second day of Hoshana, right? Where it says Even Shtiyah, Beit HaBchira, Goren HaOrdnat, it's all Aleph Bet, Dvir, HaMutzna, and so on. The Nun is Nevei Tzedek. So Nevei Tzedek is one of the nicknames of Yerushalayim, and the Rambam says Nevei Yerushalayim is one of the outer orbits of Beit HaMikdash. And Ya'aleh na al rosh simchato. What do you hear in this pasuk? Alet Yerushalayim al rosh simchato. Segulato. Who is the Anshe Segula? Vatem tiuli mamlechet kohanim v'go kadosh. So it's source number 19. V'item li segula mikol amim. In Parshat Yitro, Am Yisrael is called the chosen nation. Segula tihina ateret utsnif melucha tzvi tiferet. Again, there's some type of sniff. So sniff we say is like a scarf, a royal scarf. Tzvi tiferet. There seems to be some repetition of the themes here. Amusim nisaam ateret indam. La'anod ateret means to put on jewelry, right? Is that the word that's used, I believe? La'anod, or earrings and so on. So here it's to put on the ateret, but it's you'd think it's a burden. So we have a pasuk here from Yeshayahu, source 21. Shimu elai Beit Yaakov v'chol she'erit Beit Yisrael ha'amusim. But this is not pejorative. When you say somebody's burdening me down, you're so heavy, hanusuim, and then you're being carried. But to Kadosh Baruch Hu, we were weightless. And Kadosh Baruch Hu was doing this with great desire to be burdened by schlepping Am Yisrael. Amusim nisa'am ateret indam, me'asher yakru be'einav kibdam. From being like so valued, from the word yakar, in his eyes is the honor of Am Yisrael. And now, what do we have on our heads? Pe'ero alai u'fe'eri alaf. This is the famous medrash. It's found in source 22. The Gemara says, Masechet Shabbat, the Rash Rav Samlai. B'sha'a shehikdimu Yisrael nasel l'nishma. So, Am Yisrael didn't say, all right, let's hear what it's all about, and if we like it, we'll accept it. They said it just the other way around. We'll accept it, and then we'll hear what this is all about. Bo shishim ribos shel malachei hasharet. That's a pretty big number. 60,000 angels came before Kadosh Baruch Hu. Lekol echad ve'echad miYisrael kashru lo shtei ktarim, which means each malach why is it 60,000? It's 600,000. It means that each one of Am Yisrael was given a private crown, 2 crowns, one for Naaseh and one for Nishma. So these are the atarot of the previous line. And now the phrase of Endenu atarot is from Eov 23, and Me'asher yakarta be'einai nichbadati from Yeshayahu is what we had in the previous lines. You see again, but now I'm flipping to source number 25. In source 25, the Gemara says in Masechet Brachot, Amalem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. God said to Am Yisrael, Atem asituni chativa achat be'olam. You made me into one unit in this world, and va'ani ese etchem chativa achat ba'olam, and I will make you one unique unit in this world. Atem asituni chativa achat ba'olam, shene'emar, as it says, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, v'ani eseh etchem chativa achat ba'olam, and I will make you one unit in this world, as it says, Umi ka'amcha Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz. The end of source number 25. And the Medrash tells us that just as we in our tefillin have Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, as if to say HaKadosh Baruch Hu's got his pair of tefillin too. I never found out if it's Rashi or Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin, but it says Umi ka'amcha Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz. So you know when we hear something about Kadosh Baruch Hu's tefillin, when you're learning Chumash and Rashi, where Kadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe in Parshat Kitisa, "V'ra'ita et achorai, fanai lo yera'u." I can't show you my face, but something from behind you're going to see. So Rashi says, "Her'eu lo kesher shel tefillin shel rosh." That Kadosh Baruch Hu shows Moshe Rabbeinu the knot of the kesher of the tefillin shel rosh, and that means what? The knot. What is knot? You know, what is that so specific? What?
Which knot is it? Is it Dalit or is it the...
Yeah, which knot was it? Was it the Dalit or the square? Right. That we also don't see. But one thing I think I figured it out. It's the kesher between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Am Yisrael. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu saw in this vision of the kesher of the tefillin of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It connected Mika Amcha Yisrael Goy Echad Ba'aretz with Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. That's what it did. So here he says, Pe'ero alai u'fe'eri alai. How do I know that Pe'er is tefillin? From Yecheskel Hanavi. When Yecheskel's wife dies, Kadosh Baruch Hu tells him, you wear your tefillin. You wear your tefillin. And from here we learn that an Ovel on mourner on day one of Shiva does not wear tefillin. Usually it works out that the very day of the Levaya, so the Shiva is maybe an hour or two or three at the end of the day, he may have davened already in the morning, or he didn't put on tefillin because of aninut, so he's not going to put on tefillin in the afternoon anymore. So that's why the next day of Shiva he does put on tefillin. But there it says Pe'ercha, your glory is interpreted as tefillin. Pe'eri alai u'fe'eri alav. You know, we have our tefillin, you have your tefillin. V'korov elai, v'kor'i elav. Look at source number 26 in V'etchanan. Ki mi goy gadol asher lo elukim krovim elav. Kadoshem elukeinu b'chol kareinu elav. When we call out to him, he's going to be close. He's going to be close when we call out to him. And obviously, that's why we start with Slichot, the season of Slichot with Ashrei. Karov Hashem lichol korav. On one condition, l'chol asher yikra'uhu be'emet, sincerely. I remember studying Sukkot Zimba with Rabbi Lichtenstein Zatzal in the Gush in 1972, and how on this pasuk he says, there are people who call out to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and they call out, but they're a bunch of phonies. They're not real. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, of course I'll pay attention, but L'chol asher yikra'uhu be'emet. It has to be a sincere call. B'karov elai, b'korei elav. And then he says, tzach ve'adom l'vusho adom, pura b'dorcho b'vo'o me'adom. We have this line in other Zemirot on Shabbos. B'vo'o me'adom, chamutz b'godem zeba. Based on psukim of Yeshayahu, source 38, 27 and 28, 27, 28, where Shirashim, it says, tzach ve'adom. That phrase is used, that the Paitan uses, and in 28, he's actually borrowing from the prophecy of Yeshayahu that a Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to trample Edom at the end of time before Mashiach comes, and it's going to be like the wine press. So the wine press, you see the grape juice shooting out, the blood of Edom, and a Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to be reddened, bloodied, by what he's doing to Edom. And that's what it said. Tzach Edom is going to be perfectly red. L'vusho Edom, his garment will be reddened. Pura b'dorcho, as he steps on as the gat, as the wine press. B'vo'o me'edom, when he comes back from Edom. Kesha tefillin her'eh le'anav. Again, this is the kesha of the tefillin he showed to his Anav was Moshe Rabbeinu. Tmunat Hashem leneged Einav. Moshe Rabbeinu saw more face to face than anybody else. Rotze ba'amo anavim yifa'er, yoshev tehilot bamlit ba'er. I want to finish this. Rosh devarcha emet, korei merosh, dor vador, am doreshcha merosh. And he finishes it off with that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should accept this all as a tefillah, should accept all my tefillah. Shit hamon shirai elecha. I'm a very small person, but I'm offering this as a korban. Verinati, and my song, tikrav elecha, should be close to you. Tehilati, tehina l'roshcha ateret. Everything that I've offered in shul, in this davening, should be accepted and put on your crown. Utfilati, and my prayer should be accepted. Tikon ketoret, as the ketoret, the spice offering, which was a wonderful aroma, as the Rambam tells us in Mar Nevuchim, that it was deodorant, because it must have stunk in the Beit HaMikdash with all the shechting of the behemoths and everything. Must have smelled like a butcher store. No. The ketoret neutralized the smell, and it was so potent that all the way down to your richai, you can still get the scent of the ketoret. And we ask that even if we have spiritually foul odors on our neshama, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should accept our tefillot. Tikon ketoret. Tikar shirat rosh be'einecha. He should accept our, the rosh actually means poor people. We are poor. In spirituality, we are poor people. We know we are not far from perfect, but he should accept it anyway. Kashir yushar al korbanecha, as the Levium used to sing over the korbanot. It should be as beautiful as that. Birkati ta'aleh lerosh mashbir. Our bracha should be offered to the rosh mashbir, the one who is the one who provides for us everything we need. You're the address. You're the only address, the exclusive address. Mecholel umolid tzadik kabir. You are the one who gives us birth, keeps us alive. Uberkati tinane li rosh. And I'm waiting to see your head motion affirmatively that you've accepted. That's why I played Tanya from Fried. That whole story of Elisha, the Kohen Gadol, Yishmael ben Elisha, going into to Ketoret on Yom Kippur, and he sees, you look at 39, Tanya, Amra Bishmael ben Elisha, Pamachat Nifnasli Laktir Toret Lifnai Lefim, in the Kodesh Kodeshim. It's a Yom Kippur scene. Veraiti, Akatriel, Hashem Tzvar, he sees HaKadosh Baruch Hu as if to say, Yoshev al Kisei Ram V'Nisa, no different than Yeshayahu Navi in the Maseh Merkavah of Perek Vav. V'amarli Yishmael beni, Kadosh Baruch Hu tells Yishmael, the Kohen Gadol, give me a bracha. What do you mean, give me a bracha? What does a Kadosh Baruch Hu need? Amarti lo yiratzon lefanecha shichbishu rachamecha et ka'asra. You should be able to conquer your anger and give it over with compassion. V'yigolu rachamecha midatecha, and your compassion should overcome all the midot that might strike a bad fortune for us. V'titnahegen banecha b'midat harachamim, and you should view us, this is Yom Kippur, with compassion. V'tikanes lahem lifnei mishort adin, and should accept us beyond the call of duty. Don't take us for what we're worth. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu na'aneh li b'rosho. Kadosh Baruch Hu nods affirmatively with his head. Yes, I will do that. And the author says, "Ubrikati tinaneh li rosh v'ota kach lecha kibsamrim rosh." You should take it, just like Yaakov Avinu said, "Kachet birkati," and kibsamrim rosh. Ye'eravna sichi alecha ki nafshi tarog elecha. Based on the pasuk on source 41, Ye'erav alai sichi anochi esmach b'Hashem. With leaving this song in ecstasy, that a Kadosh Baruch Hu showed himself to us, and we will be able to go on and go on and go on. What a song. And to understand why the Vilna Gaon said, this is a Yom Kippur song. There's no other time during the year that you can get yourself to that level of ecstasy but on Yom Kippur with Yishmael ben Elisha, coming into the Kohen Gadol, the Beit HaMikdash and the Kodesh Kodeshim. Okay. Again, next week, in Mitzvah Hashem, there'll be some shir at this hour, but I won't be here. But we'll be back in Mitzvah Hashem in 2 weeks. I'll be in London next week. Yeah.